Of the African Refugee Development Centre, Ori Lahat. Ori, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
We know there's a lot of talk around countries' failure to appropriately integrate migrants and asylum seekers into the country that they're fleeing to. Why is that? Where is the system failing?
I think first we need to look at how they got into the country. We have some countries have structured programs, and if you're a migrant and you're part of that program, you might face the different difficulties than if you're crossing the border by yourself or perhaps not part of that program. What we're seeing is that in many cases the first difficulties are starting even with housing. In Israel, our first project was just giving a shelter to someone. People are coming over here, just crossing the border and looking for a place for a roof above their heads. The second thing is legal status, which is has a lot of political implication in it, and also create a lot of tensions around political spheres. A lot of people are against giving any type of legal identity for people to live, to work, to be basically as any other resident, to get health services and so on. And this is vital. If you don't have a legal status to be in that country, you cannot even get a driver license.
Sure. There are, of course, the basic needs that absolutely need to be met. But then I suppose there's also the foreign culture of these migrants coming into a brand new home with a very different culture, can oftentimes be out of alignment with their own country. What can and should be done around attending to that?
Well, no doubt that the more different the culture that you're coming from, and perhaps even visually the way you look, it's not like to say it, but that's evident, it creates a lot of difficulties in new countries. If you're asking what can be done, I think for sure this is something that has to do with more tolerance, things that needs to be taught to certain in schools. Part of us being in a society, being more acceptance of the others. But in evidence, what we see is actually, perhaps you can even see it in Europe, perhaps even more these days, that it creates a lot of tensions, it creates a lot of backfires, and it creates a lot of hatred. And actually what we see is more perhaps right-wing that are taking more the stance against. And that's what influenced, again, that whole situation of legality, whether or not they should be accepted or not. Even simple thing as being safe walking in the street.
Certainly. You often hear, though, from people living in the neighbourhoods where migrants, refugees, asylum seekers are placed and are housed, that these foreign cultures are interfering with the integrity of the culture of the people living in the host country.
Well, being an Israeli, I can say that what we see over here is that the diversity of culture is a plus and not a minus. It really depends how open you are and how dynamic you are with your thinking. I think the fact that we have multiple cultures in Israel create a really diverse music, food industry. A lot of people bring their craft that they brought from their own country. So there's a lot of things that can be taken out of that and move actually that country forward. So I think it really depends on the people. More than anything else.
Do you think that there's perhaps a resistance by some migrants who come into new countries, that they want to continue to live in the way that they did back home, which absolutely they should have the right to do, when it doesn't work in alignment with the current culture that they're trying to integrate into?
Our experience is that usually people are trying to be integrated into the culture that they're coming to. They want to learn the language, to learn how to find better jobs, to go to better schools, to learn how to get themselves a better future for their kids, for themselves. And it's actually an interesting point, because an example that I usually use, it's about France, and it's actually about the third generation of immigrants in France, in which you see how, for subjective or objective, and we're not getting into that, but how the fact that they felt that they're not being accepted by the citizens actually got them to embrace more the culture and to a larger extent even the religion of their country of the origin of their first generation. Therefore, I think in the long run, if we're looking for a solution, then it's to assist those immigrants to be part of our society.
Certainly. What do you make of the current zeitgeist surrounding migrants, the fear factor associated with them?
I think it has a lot to do with how we see the world that we're living in. If we just want to shut our doors and to say there's nothing going on over there, one day it might happen to us as well. So certainly as Jewish people, I think this is something that we need to be aware of. And I do think there are always balance. We always need to look for the right balance. It is important. But at the same time, we need to remember that we're human beings. There are other human beings out there. And if we're not looking at them, not assisting, one day it would be us also. And there's no way really to stop it. I mean, we're living in a world where people are just, crossing from one border to another. We need to learn how to make a better reality out of it and not just to have hatred and going against and being anti. That doesn't solve anything.
Absolutely. If you were going to write that syllabus to be taught in schools, what would be in it?
I think first is to look at someone else to see that even if he's different, you have much more of the same than you think. And one of the things that in Israel we do also for asylum seekers is first get that personal engagement. At the end, you understand that you're dealing with human people. You're just the same, and you're looking for the same things. And really, if given the opportunity, something better can be created than if you're not putting your efforts into creating a better future for both of you.
Certainly, and to be grateful for the luck that you have grown up and do live in a safe country that people want to come to.
Yes.
Certainly a good point.